right, Arizona's hottest R&B. It's the all-new Vena Soul. This is Julian hanging out on the Julian Show, and here with me today, Teri Tobin is my guest, singer, songwriter too, right?
That's right. That's right.
Welcome to the Julian Show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm just glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you are here. I'm very excited because you've got music out. You're doing big things. And we've heard your music, and it's wait till you hear the song. If you have not heard any of her music, we got it for you today, of course. So, but yeah, so Teri, how is everything going for you so far right now?
I mean, things are good. I'm just grateful that I still get to do what I love to do. You know, I've been in the business a long time, and to be able to do music that I love, and you know, as an independent artist, of course, and as an entrepreneur, you know, there's a hustle aside, you know, a part of it as well. But I still love it, and to be able to tell the stories that I get to tell by writing certain songs, I think is a blessing for me.
So, how long have you been doing this?
Well, if I tell you that, then I tell you how old I am. No, no, but I've okay. So my first professional gig was singing background for Jeffrey Osborne when I was a kid.
When you was a kid?
When I was a kid.
Wait.
Yes.
How mature was your voice at that point?
Well, I was in a choir at the time, and he was looking for a kids choir for this song called Soweto.
Oh, okay.
And so it was a small kids choir that had I want to say Rashawn Patterson was in it, and maybe Tasha Scott, like a couple of different artists that were big at the time, that were child stars.
Right.
And then some other people that I knew. And so, yeah, that was my first professional, I would say the first time I got a check, essentially, because I've been singing since I could talk in church, but that was my first professional gig.
Wow. What was that like for you, though?
It was wonderful because for me, you know, as a kid of the 70s and of that period, I looked at, you know, the liner notes on albums, right? And so I was excited, of course, to be able to work with Jeffrey Osborne, but I was more excited to be able to work with some of the engineers who I saw their names written on the inside, or some of the musicians and, you know, people that I had read about. And so we were at Lion Share Studio, which of course was another studio that I read about constantly. And so to be able to have that as my first experience, it was just beyond words. And then he kind of set me up to have that expectation for what professionalism is in the studio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because of course he's always been just a genuine, just, you know, sweetheart of a guy. So.
Yeah, and he definitely still has that longevity. He's still out doing things. What were some of the things that you picked up on as far as that professionalism in the studio?
I mean, for one, time is money. Most importantly.
Time is money, yes.
But because we were kids, he did take time to, like, you know, laugh and joke with us and make us comfortable.
Right.
Make sure that, you know, we were comfortable enough to be able to deliver what he was asking for. And just as a contrast, of course, I've worked with other artists that I won't say any names, but worked with some other artists where, because the label was paying for the studio time, they're playing Xbox, they're playing, you know, not Xbox, but, you know, playing different video games and stuff. And I didn't grow up that way. Like, you know, I'm like, let's get to the session, you know.
Work.
Exactly. And so I was able to see the difference and actually have a more of an appreciation for how he set up his environment. And so when I go into studios, of course, that's what I prefer as well.
Oh, okay, cool. And so you mentioned songwriting too, that you've done. The inspiration for songwriting, I think that is one of the clutch skills to have.
Right.
Obviously monetarily, of course.
Yes.
But to be able to come up with a song, which is literally the bread and butter of the music industry.
Right.
Where do you get that from? Where do you draw your inspirations for songs?
Well, you know, it's funny. Before I came, I went to visit my grandmother, and when I was a kid, I always, you know, I would sit on her piano and just come up with random songs. At the time, I didn't know that was going to turn into me being a songwriter. And at the time, of course, I wrote about what I knew, you know, silly songs or whatever. And then as time went on, when I was at Howard, I encountered a friend who's deceased now, but he encouraged me to write my songs so I can tell the stories that I wanted to tell. Because part of the challenge of being the age that I was, and you were talked about, what my voice might have sounded like. I did have a very mature voice at a young age, and so it was very warm and sultry, to be a teenager
Right.
and sounding like a grown woman. And so part of the challenge was any producers I worked with, they wanted me to sing the stuff that they wanted me to sing about, which I wasn't ready for that stuff yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so by the time, I got to Howard and got to meet some of the people that I became friends with, he started talking about, well, make sure in order for you to like really have buy-in, you got to tell the story that you want to tell. And so Scotty Beats was the one that kind of encouraged me to do that. And so in doing that, of course, they weren't that great in the beginning.
Right.
You gotta hone your skill there. But I just over time, I listened. I'm also a child of music that says something.
Oh yeah.
So when I talk about like reading liner notes, it's the Donny Hathaways, the Stevie Wonders, the Marvin Gayes, all those Tina Marie that I used to listen to, and the stories that they told, like the talk about when they were singing about love or whatever they were, writing about. Especially with Donnie, I would always say, that's the kind of impact I want to have. I want to have somebody listen to my song and actually, find, relate to it in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of artists talk about what it was like, the experience of getting a record. I'm sure you were talking about record albums, right?
Absolutely.
The vinyl. Yes.
Absolutely.
Reading the liner notes.
Yeah.
And some of them would have the lyrics.
Yeah.
And it being an experience when buying the song or buying the record. And I assume you had the same type of experience. Like,
oh, absolutely. Like today's kids don't know what it's like to like you say, go to a record store, you go buy the thing you've been saving up for to purchase, you put the needle on the record, and there's nothing like that analog sound, but you listen to it. And for me, I was an only child at that time, so that literally was my babysitter. Like I literally sat there with my headphones, and as I think back in my childhood, I don't even remember I don't remember if my family was home or not, to be quite honest, because I was always in that zone. Like,
yes.
and I felt good there. I didn't feel, and I always talk about how I'm a woman of a certain age that have experienced almost every medium that has come about with regards to music. So I'm talking 8-track, I'm talking album, talking cassette tapes, CDs. You name it. I've had the opportunity to experience all of them. So
well, I guess you and I are pretty close. 'Cause I do remember. I remember 8-tracks literally on its last leg.
yes.
And then record albums. My first album I ever got, I don't remember if I bought it or not, but it was Fat Boys.
Oh yes.
I forget when that Crushing album came out, like
Yeah.
87 or something like that. But then didn't really spend much time on vinyl, into cassette. And like you, I would be in my room with the cassette and tapes all over my
everywhere.
bed, headphones on, and I'm in a different world.
That's right.
So with that experience, and how has that helped you as far as music, as far as getting ideas and really finding that niche or finding your voice?
So for me, I think the impact that all of that had on me is that as I prepare to do a new album or I start working on a new song, I think the key thing is, how does it make me feel, or do I feel it? And that's essentially how I go about completing the record. Oftentimes, especially when you have a major label working with you or you're working with executives, they have a different, mindset. What's commercial? What's, what do they think the audience is going to like? And I'm not saying that I don't consider that, but I'm more leaning towards like what makes me feel good. What do I feel? And I always kind of revert back to what I felt listening to, Giving Up by Donny Hathaway, and not knowing what love was even about at that age.
Right.
But physically, like, I'm getting chills thinking about what that actually felt like. The chills that I got listening to the orchestration and listening to, just the notes that he chose and that type of thing. So when I go into, writing something, that's kind of what I focus in on. And so I think that's how it prepared me.
That's beautiful, because I can still see myself so dialed in and zeroed in on whatever I was listening to.
Yes.
I can only imagine for you,
Yeah.
as a person who's a songwriter and artist,
absolutely,
how I can just do that to you. So, your experience in the music industry, I'm very curious on, because I know you mentioned you're independent artist now.
Yes.
What has been your experience in this industry, especially if you've dealt with labels?
Yes. So, I signed my first deal at 17. I was in an R&B rap group at the time. Of course, it was around the time that TLC had just come out, and so we were going to be like the next TLC. The label we were signed to, I guess I can talk about it now. It was Jam Master Jay's label. At that time, a lot of artists, of course, started venturing off into getting like imprint labels or getting, subsidiaries of major labels. Mm-hmm. And so in his case, he left the task of, recruiting artists and supposedly A&Ring, projects. And the long and the short of it is the gentleman that he had in charge to do that actually ran off with the money that we were supposed to be using for studio time. That didn't happen. And so, but I'll just say that my experience at that time, and a lot of this has to do with why I sing about what I sing about now and why I feel the way that I do about my music today, is, so many times I was told I was, my voice was too dark, or I was too dark, or I was too thick. I was too, all these different things. Mm-hmm. And there are many things that have been thrown my way to kind of let me to think that maybe I didn't have a spot within, the industry. But anyway, being a part of that group, my girls, I'm still friends with them to this day. And, but what I want to get to is it was a lesson that I had to learn about the business side.
Right.
It was an expensive lesson because, that was like 90, I think it was 89, 90 when I signed that. And it was like 94 before I actually got out of that deal.
Oh.
And I had to have my attorney work his magic to get me out of it, because what I didn't know is, of course, at 17, I shouldn't be signing any legal documents without the presence of an adult, but I did. But at any rate, I signed it, and I literally signed my life away. Like, everything that I could have ever imagined doing in future, they were going to own it. And I didn't know that. Even though I had an attorney, and we went over certain points, we were focused on other points. We were focused on like percentages and that type of thing. I never once considered like that I'm signing this deal that would mean that if I ever wrote a cookbook, 20 years later, they were going to own it. And so,
Man, I just saw something on Prince. Prince, literally in his own voice, said that when he talked up, when he was having that whole thing with Warner Brothers, mm-hmm. that, what did he say? It was something about, Prince said, yeah, something I'm going to, I got music in my head. Mm-hmm. And then the exec said, that's all right, because we're going to own that too.
Yeah.
And I guess it woke him up to say,
absolutely.
Well, dang, do you think they're going to own my own thoughts?
Exactly.
That to me, I think that's why I'm glad that, we are in the day and time now that, you can kind of go independent and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
do your own thing. And like what you said, now you're on your own hustle with it.
Yeah.
But still, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. So with your current projects that you're working on, specifically the song that you have out now, 4-letter word, where did the inspiration for that song come from?
So, and I don't normally blush, but
you sure are doing it now.
So the truth is, and I'll just I have to go back a little bit. So I was born on Valentine's Day. So everything about me is about love. Like, I've always written love songs. My first album, it wasn't inspired by anybody in particular. It was about me wanting to put out into the universe what I wanted to see come back to me, right?
Right, right.
So that's typically what my inspiration is. And in that particular case, on that song, I had experienced love, but I'd also experienced heartbreak, and wasn't really interested in love and in all of that. And somebody asked me the question, like what would it take for you to like finally like let down your guard again, to allow yourself to love again? And so I started thinking about the things that that person would have to make me feel in order to be in that space again. And that's where the song came about. You gave 4 letters purpose in my life.
Nice.
And part of that is because I thought love was a 4-letter word. It really was a 4-letter word to me. Like, don't bring that to me.
Yeah.
My guard was up. So, but now, of course, being open to that now, I wanted to sing about something that I thought maybe other people might be able to relate to.
Exactly. So, what kind of love now is in your life?
We're going there.
Why not? Your fans want to know.
Well, the kind of love that's in my life right now is the love that I have for myself, and for my son. I am a single parent, and I'm dating, but not exclusively. So until they become intentional about me and I become intentional about them,
that's it.
They don't get that label yet.
They don't get the label.
No, not yet.
They got to make the move and claim that.
That's right.
That's get
right.
it.
That's right. And I think we talked about how times have changed. I really think, and I know that's not what this conversation is about, but I really do believe things have changed with regards to how men and women move with each other, nowadays.
Yeah.
I think that it's so important. Well, I'll just say I miss how a man would be intentional about what it is they were trying to do, either with a woman, whether if it was just to take you on a date or whatever it is. But now we're in this instant gratification situation where you don't really have to work that hard, to take on it. I'm like, for me, no, you have to woo me a little bit,
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with putting in a little work, because it does show intention.
Absolutely.
And even as for a man, it lets you know where you stand. Even like, I'm a dude, I'm a man.
Right.
It lets me know, oh, okay, look at me. I'm about to move this mountain. Look at me. This woman got me ready to do this and that and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's time for me to,
Right.
And I think that helps. I think
Absolutely.
that helps, and I think allowing yourself to feel that and to know that. And I think that's why it was so important to have you on, because of the music. And I think that if we continue to, represent love, represent and also representing the music,
Sure.
I think generations coming up will definitely start to, because I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
My 14-year-old is obsessed with Aaliyah.
Okay.
She wants a record player. So we just talked about the sound of.
Yes.
I'm like, she really? You know what I'm saying? Like, how does she even know about it? She dang near knows more about 90s music than me, just about.
Right.
And I'm seeing that with, even online on Instagram, the Gen Zs.
Yes.
There's pockets of them that are starting to come around and love this. And they don't like necessarily what's happening with the current music.
Right.
And I think the soul and the love has been taken out. Even if it's just fun music, it's like there still was some sort of soul and love in dance records and just things that made you feel good, right?
Right, absolutely.
And so I think it's coming back.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think part of it, like you said, there is this ode to 90s music, because there obviously there have been, everybody has their own favorite decade of music, but the 90s definitely represented a really, really storied time in music, and especially in R&B. And and I just feel like, again, aside from, I feel like I was put on this earth to spread love, I do believe that there's enough negativity out there, and there's enough media coverage, I'll say, on what divides us, I would love to be a part of what helps bring us together. So that's kind of why you're gonna see music videos with me. Aside from, because I'm a thick woman, you're gonna see a man loving up on all of that. You know what I mean? You're gonna
all of it.
you're gonna see you're gonna see just examples of love, because I think it's important that we have enough to kind of offset what's out there already,
and you right on point with that. I think just representing that, not even focus on the negativity, because there's enough.
Absolutely.
And so we need to make sure that everybody's coming to you and to your sites to get your music. Where can they find you?
So you can find my music on all streaming sites, Apple Music, Tidal, wherever you get your music, Spotify. You can find me on social media. You can find me at I am Teri Tobin. That's I am TeriTobin. You can also find some music of mine on Bandcamp. So there's some of my current singles on there, but there's also some mixtapes that I did during the pandemic that are not necessarily formally released, but you have the opportunity to get them while it's still there.
Yeah, get them while it's still there. Now, will you be doing any appearances, concerts, or anything coming up?
Absolutely. So depending on when this airs, I have an event that we're doing this weekend at the Onyx Art Gallery. It's May 7th. That is actually, people are going to get a sneak peek at the album. I don't typically let people hear the album before it comes out, but we're doing a sneak peek, unplugged version of my live show. And then next month I will be in Tucson, and there's a couple of other cities that we're looking at. I'm looking forward to also going back to the UK. Had the opportunity to bring my previous records to the UK and Paris. Was at 2016.
Okay.
So once I finish this album, my plan is to get back on the road and hit the spots. And I'm a big believer in going where people appreciate you.
That's right.
So if anyone's listening and there's a city that they feel like their city needs a little bit of love, hit me up on socials and we'll see what we can do.
And you're going to bring it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you again for coming
Absolutely.
And stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Teri Tobin, everybody. You got on the Julian Show. The 5 o'clock free ride is coming up next.